sitting there trying to think, it's like, I have no clue. No clue whatsoever.
I think I've seen you some other classes or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what are you up to tonight?
And yourself? Still probably working on around the house.
Yep, still am.
So I heard that article in the paper. Okay, this year, look at this one.
Yeah, no, we're still there. We're still working. We're planting stuff, messing around.
I must have seen our gardens around the building.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because there's a flyer on here on the table that talks about it.
Yeah, no, I've had a Ollie class.
Oh, out here, okay.
You look familiar.
Yes,
Kirky Tree. But did you have, it's probably I've seen you speak somewhere else. Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to Aldersgate United Methodist Church. I'm glad that everybody's here joining us tonight, and also thanks to those who are looking in online. I'm Carrie Beckenhauer. I'm a member of the Earth Stewards here at Aldersgate. And before I introduce our speaker, I'm going to cover a couple of housekeeping things. One is that the restrooms are out the double doors you just came in and to your left down the hallway. When you see the water fountain, you'll know you're in the right spot. You'll also notice that here in the sanctuary, there's an emergency exit on every wall. It's unlikely that we'll need to use them, but just in case, you'll need to know where they are. We do have some handouts tonight. They're on the back table. Be sure to pick one up if you'd like to have one. And sorry for people online, you're going to miss out on that. This is our second presentation in our series for Earth Stewards this year. And I'm going to let you know that the speaker will talk for about 30 to 40 minutes. Then we'll do question and answer for about 20 to 30 minutes. And we do have a wireless mic. I'll bring it around so you can ask the question, which allows people at home to hear what the question is, and then the speaker can respond. Okay. We are thrilled to have Anna Edding with us tonight. She had worked at the University of Nebraska in the Office of Sustainability, and she also earned her master's degree there. So her background is in environmental education, woohoo, fisheries and wildlife, also good. Currently, Anna serves as the sustainability specialist with the City of Lincoln. She focuses on implementing Lincoln's local food system plan and assisting in developing and tracking sustainability programs. All good things that have to do with the city's climate action plan, and that's what she's going to be talking with us about tonight. So please join me in welcoming Anna.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm so excited to be here with you guys tonight. As said, my name is Anna Edding, and I'm the Sustainability Specialist with the City of Lincoln. I wanted to start off our conversation with just giving you a little background of where I'm coming from and sharing a little bit of my sustainability journey with you. So whether we think about it or not, we all have a sustainability journey. Maybe it's a long one, maybe it's a short one. For me, it really started when I served a year as an environmental educator with AmeriCorps out in Reno, Nevada. I was working with a nonprofit there, really trying to get kids out in our local parks. And we were digging in the dirt and looking for bugs and looking for birds and really just trying to have a conversation with them about stewardship and connecting them with their community. So even though we're not digging through dirt right now or looking for birds and bugs, I'm really excited to still have a conversation with you about stewardship and the community around us. So here's a little overview of what we're talking about today, really diving into what our Resilient Lincoln Initiative is, why we're talking about resiliency as a city, where we're at what our goals are and how we're going to get there. And then, of course, how you guys have a really important role in helping us reach our goals as well. So when we're talking about what our Resilient Lincoln Initiative is, it's helpful to actually define the word resiliency, because oftentimes this means different things depending on what your background is. In this context, when we talk about climate resiliency, it's really our ability to recover from shocks, but also the capacity to thrive even when our environment is currently and constantly changing. And yes, please move up if you can't see the slides, because I've got some good stuff on here, so I want you to be able to see it. So our Resilient Lincoln Initiative is the initiative of Mayor Gaylor Bard, and it really is working to identify the risks that Lincoln is open to, as well as strategies to help us be more resilient towards those risks. From our initiative is really where our 2021-2027 Climate Action Plan arose. I'd really love to just kind of know your background with the Climate Action Plan. So if you could show me on your fingers 1 to 5, 1 would be, I've maybe never really heard of it, first time, interested in learning more. 3 is, I've heard about it, I know some of the initiatives. And 5 is, I know this whole thing front to cover, I'd love to get up here and present with you. So show me on your fingers. Perfect, yes, okay, great. So our Climate Action Plan, love to boast that we were actually the first city in Nebraska to do a Climate Action Plan. Omaha recently I don't want to say published, but got theirs approved by their city council in December, so that's really exciting as well. But we did a lot of community engagement to develop our Climate Action Plan. There were actually 600 ideas submitted to the plan as strategies for building this more resilient system. From those 600 strategies, we narrowed it down to 118. So we're doing good, I know. When we talk about climate action and climate resiliency, I think it's really helpful to talk about the difference between mitigative versus adaptive responses. So these are really the 2 ways that you can address climate change. When we talk about mitigative, this is where we're actually trying to reduce or prevent more greenhouse gases from entering our atmosphere. When we talk about adaptive responses, this is where we're thinking about the risks that we're vulnerable to and really trying to address those risks and take action against that. So a metaphor I kind of like is if we're in a boat together and our boat springs a leak. A mitigative response would be to plug that leak, right? No more water is going to get into our boat. There's still water in our boat though. So an adaptive response would be to start bailing out that water. And I really like this metaphor because I think it's helpful to understand both of these responses are important for us to be able to move forward in our boat. If our boat is still leaking water and we're bailing out, what are we gonna do? We're probably still gonna sink, right? But if we plug that leak and we still have too much water in our boat, still a problem. So really important for us to have kind of this dual approach. And you can see this approach in the main goals that we have in our Climate Action Plan. So one of the main goals is reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. That's based on our 2011 baseline, so this would be an example of a mitigative action. Another main goal that we have is making Lincoln more resilient to the climate hazards that we face, so adaptive action. The third goal is really just trying to integrate this thinking of climate action and how do we build a more resilient community through all the things that the city is doing in our ordinances. So our 118 initiatives are spread out in all these different action areas. There's 8 of them. There's things like energy, transportation, economic development, protections, so protections from climate hazards, local food, natural climate solutions, waste, and community engagement. I don't think anyone really wants to hear me go through 119 initiatives. That does not sound fun. But I did want to give you a couple examples of what some of these goals actually look like. So I'll read it out. One from our energy section is continuing incentives for programs that promote installing renewable energy. From transportation, it's transitioning our city fleet to alternative fuels, reducing the amount of recyclable material going to our landfills, and then encouraging conversion of lawns to native grasses, gardens, or drought-tolerant landscapes. So just gives you a little bit of insight into what these different mitigative and adaptive goals can look like. So why is the city actually talking about this? In the Climate Action Plan, one of the goals was to identify the risks that we as a community face. So we know that Lincoln's climate is going to change by 2050, and the changes that are happening are going to have a negative impact on our community. So by 2050, we know that we're going to see an increase in our temperature. Our average temperature right now is going to go from 52 degrees Fahrenheit to 57 degrees Fahrenheit. We're also going to see an increase in the days where we have a heat index over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh. Of those 44 days that we're going to see an increase, half of those days are going to be even hotter at 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So hotter temperatures. We're also going to see changes in our precipitation. Overall, precipitation is going to increase, which sounds not too bad the first time you hear it, but what's concerning is where this precipitation is actually happening. So we're going to see more precipitation events in the winter and spring, and less overall precipitation in the summertime. We're also going to see these precipitation events be more severe. They're going to occur for longer periods and have a heavier amount of rainfall or snowfall overall. So what do we think that means for our community? This is where I'm gonna ask you for some input, okay? What do you think hotter temperatures and more precipitation means for us? I gave you a hint too. Anyone have ideas? Floods, fantastic, excellent example. What else? Yeah, hotter temperatures and drought in the summertime has gonna be a huge impact on our agriculture, the plants and the animals that were really important to Nebraska. How about the overall health of our communities and our health when these events are happening, flooding and extreme heat? Those have really big impacts on our health overall, right? Here is a word cloud. I just think it's really interesting to look at these. This is from another group I was chatting about and some of the things that they were worried about. So they mentioned drought, extreme heat, and extreme weather. We know that when these things happen, it has an impact on community health. So as our temperatures start to change, we're going to see an increase in our insect-borne diseases. When these things happen, they also have a really disproportionate impact on some of the community members in our group. So minority and low income are really disproportionately impacted. An example of this is when we think about extreme heat weathers and who is vulnerable to extreme heat. So outdoor workers, agriculture workers, construction workers, anyone who doesn't have access to air conditioning, people who are homeless or lack transportation, just a lot of people who are impacted by these things. So as a city, it's really important for us to start considering what's happening to residents and how are we preparing for these things that are coming down our way. So, super fun news right there that I shared, right? All these risks that we're going to be facing. Let's move on a little bit to where we're at right now and where we're trying to go. So I wanted to talk through our greenhouse gases a little bit. This is a snapshot of our 2022 greenhouse gas inventory. You can see that the majority of our greenhouse gases in Lincoln are coming from electricity, about 50%. The second largest majority is transportation at 30%, and then natural gas at about 17%, followed by waste at 5%. When we look at our historical emissions, we actually can see, if you can see up there, the orange line shows about a 20% decrease in our emissions since 2011. The orange dot that says goal 80% reduction by 2050 is where we're trying to get with our goal. So a little bit of ways to go. When we look at the orange line, I do like to point out that the first really big decline that you see up there is actually from LES, Lincoln Electric System, installing and investing in renewable energy, specifically wind energy. The second big dip happened in 2019, 2020. You can probably guess what that was from, but that was COVID. So really interesting to see some of those big dips based on what's happening in our community. So greenhouse gases is pretty easy to show you these numbers of here's where we're at. When we're talking about the resiliency of our community, that's a little bit harder to define and show you data points for. But we've talked about some of the risks that our community is really susceptible to, so I wanted to highlight some of the things that are really great to see in our community. The first is our air quality. So our health department tracks our air quality consistently, and we know that we're meeting national standards. In 2024, we actually saw a report from the American Lung Association, and they published a study on our air quality, and they said Lincoln was one of the top 5 cities in the states with the cleanest air. We're actually the only Midwest city to reach that top 5, which is exciting. We also have really great access to green space and trail access. Not super important that you can see what's happening on the graphs, I'll explain it. But for our green space, we do measure how many of our communities are within a 10-minute walking distance to some type of park or open space. 10 minutes is about the average that most people are willing to walk to some of those spaces. In 2023, we did know that over 90% of our neighborhoods have access to these types of green spaces. And then we also are measuring how many of our communities have access to trail systems. And you can see the red diagrams? Red areas on the map are places that don't have access to trail spaces. But overall, we have access to over 183 miles of trail in Lincoln, which is really great opportunity for people to get outside and all the benefits that come with that. So just a few indicators of some exciting things in our community. And then let's talk a little bit more about what we're actually doing to reach our greenhouse gas goal and also creating this more resilient community. So when we're talking greenhouse gases, you notice that one of the biggest categories of our greenhouse gas emissions is electricity. I heard that last week you heard from LES, the Lincoln Electric System. They're the ones who supply electricity here in Lincoln. One of their big goals is to decarbonize their portfolio by 2040. This might be news to you already, but about a third of their portfolio is coal resources right now, a third is gas, and a third is renewables. So they have a really great plan outlined to basically reach this decarbonization goal. They're looking at expanding their solar resources, maintaining wind, and maintaining their natural gas resources, as well as starting to phase out their existing coal. This is all outlined in their integrated resource plan that's on their website, so if you're interested, you can dive a lot deeper into what that means. They, of course, do recognize that some of this is really dependent on what's market availability and technology is available to actually get them there, right? There's a little bit of things that have to be figured out along the way. But I do want to mention that LES has this goal because based on our greenhouse gas inventory, it's really important that they reach it for us to be able to reach our 80%. That makes sense? Okay. So another way that we are reducing emissions is through our heat pump incentive program in partnership with LES. This is a really great way to provide residents an opportunity to install heat pumps. Heat pumps are, contrary to the name, ways to both heat and cool your house. They use a technology similar to refrigerators where they transfer warm energy from cool areas to warm spaces. A way to kind of put it simply, I guess. But it's really, in simple ways to say it, it's a more energy efficient technology because instead of generating that heat or cold, it's transferring it, right? So that way it's a little bit more efficient than air conditioners or boilers. So we've gone through 2 rounds of funding with the heat pump program. The first round was really exciting to see how fast those funds were used. We installed over 329 units throughout the couple months that we had the funds available. What was really interesting was that a majority of the heat pumps that were installed were actually replacing existing heat pumps. So instead of replacing air conditioners or something similar. It is still good to have heat pumps replacing heat pumps because that is energy efficiency, so there's savings there. But what we really want to see is heat pumps replacing air conditioners. That's where the most greenhouse gases are eliminated. So the second round of funding that we're doing, we did get approved a couple months back. We got approved for $625,000, which is really exciting. This time, how we're offering incentives is by offering our general population more incentives if you replace a heat pump, if you replace an air conditioner versus a heat pump. So more money for replacing air conditioner. We are having the same incentives offered for our low income population, which is around $3,000. So our next round of funding opens up in September. But what's really exciting about this program is oftentimes when we talk about this type of technology, there's a cost associated with it, right? Typically, heat pumps cost over $4,000 more than air conditioners or similar technology. What's great about the shared incentive program is that between the city incentives that are offered, that can be paired with an $800 incentive from LES, and the tax credit incentives, that actually minimizes those $4,000. So it's pretty much equal to purchase a heat pump compared to an air conditioner or something. So the last initiative I wanted to share with you that we're really using to target greenhouse gases is our transportation one. Our transportation, remember, those greenhouse gases were the second biggest category after electricity. Obviously, not all of the transportation emissions are coming from our city fleet, but city fleet is a really great way that we can kind of lead this transition into alternative fueled vehicles. It's something that we have autonomy over. So our goal is to transition our fleet to 100% alternatively or electric or renewably fueled by 2040. Right now, our StarTran fleet is already about 64% transition. So we have 10 electric buses, and the majority of the other vehicles are CNGs, which is a compressed natural gas vehicle. Our light fleet vehicle is about 35% alternatively fueled, again, relying on EVs, CNGs, and then hybrid vehicles. Our heavy fleet is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So heavy fleet is heavier vehicles that take a lot more energy to operate. So right now, transitioning our heavy fleet is really dependent on the market availability and cost. When we transition these vehicles, we really want to make sure that they're going to be reliable and meet kind of the demands that the vehicles have. So next I wanted to chat a little bit more about some of the strategies that we're using to talk and strengthen our resiliency in our community. So these are our adaptive strategies. We talked a little bit about extreme heat, but I wanted to share few more data sets just to build the story a little bit more. So our health department tracks the heat-related illnesses that come into emergency rooms and hospitals. And you can tell from the graph that we've had an overall increase in the number of illness-related cases that have been coming in. Just in 2023, we saw over 150 about. We also are looking at what populations the heat is impacting and who's coming in with heat-related cases. What's really interesting to me is that the majority of people who were impacted last year were 20 to 29-year-olds, and then 30 to 39-year-olds. So we can probably guess that those are outdoor workers potentially. But overall, we're seeing an increase in the number of 20 to 29-year-olds who are coming in with these injuries, as well as the older generation. They're also seeing increased numbers of these cases. So in response to this, our health department is working on drafting an extreme heat response plan. They're doing this in collaboration with the National Weather Service, emergency management, energy providers, and a whole bunch of other stakeholders in the community. They're doing this along CDC's Building Resilience Against Climate Effects, or BRACE program. So really just trying to identify ways that we can help protect some of these vulnerable populations. Okay, we didn't touch on food in the area where we were talking about risks, but this is one of my personal favorites to talk about. This is one of the projects that I'm working on, and I also just really love food. So, when we talk about food and food insecurity, it's really happening at two different levels. So food insecurity at the household level is where an individual or a household doesn't have access, doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, or have access to all the nutrition that is needed. In Lincoln, we have about a 10.7% rate of food insecurity. That's a little bit higher than what the national average is at. We also know that there's 20 census tracts in Lincoln that have low or very low access to healthy food. The other level of food insecurity happens at a community level. So when we're talking about the community level, this is where is the food coming from in our community, right? Does our community have access to enough food that it needs? Lincoln consumes about 1.6 million pounds of food per day, which is a lot to take in. That's based on each person eating about 5.5 pounds of food a day. Even though Nebraska is an ag state, the majority of that agriculture is going to animal feed and fuel production. So that means about 90% of the food coming to Lincoln is from outside of the state. We also have a policy called the just-in-time delivery. That means that the majority of our grocery stores and our restaurants operate on this policy where food is only stocked for about 3 days. What makes us start to think is that when things happen to our food supply, shocks happen, right? We're seeing that with eggs right now. There's a national shortage because of the avian flu. Egg prices are really high, hard to find. We saw that with COVID probably. What happens to our community after 3 days when that supply chain is broken? So we are really focused on trying to strengthen and build a more resilient local food system that could help answer some of those questions and situations. Our local food policy was adopted in 2023, and it has 4 main goals to it. The first is increasing access to healthy food. Second is to invest in our food and farming community. Third is growing our food in a way that protects our natural resources. And 4 is reducing food waste in our community. So this plan is being implemented by our Mayor's Community Committee on Local Foods. It's a really fantastic group of individuals from the community that represent different stakeholders in our food system. So farmers, nonprofits like the Lincoln Food Bank, there's Bryan Health as a part of it, there's a lot of different partners from the university. So really just a group trying to come together on the projects that they're working on. It's co-chaired by Megan McGuffey with Community Crops and Tim Rinna with the Holly Hamlet. So a lot of really great wealth of resources and information there. And we're really trying to, as I said, just strengthen the community's access to local foods. There's a lot of benefits that come with that, like increased nutritional food and reaching some of these goals that we talked about up there. So those are about 5 strategies that we're doing. I just wanted to highlight that a lot of work is happening across the city, right? Those are just the 5 that I wanted to chat with you about today. But there's a lot of other things happening that have a community impact. So one of the things, our Future Ready Workforce Initiative, this is trying to get a pipeline for HVAC technicians, electricians, and EV technicians, more access to work fields. We're also working on Water 2.0, which is getting the city a secondary source of water. Right now, we only operate on one source of water out near Ashland, the well fields. So that would bring more resiliency to our community. There's a couple other things that we're working on that we're focusing more on our city operations, right? How is our city running a sustainable department? So one of the projects that we're doing is our energy management plan for municipal buildings. That's helping us establish a baseline for all the energy use in city and county buildings and help us figure out where are ways we can increase more energy efficiency technology, what are things we can change. We also just launched an employee green team, which is really just trying to grow awareness within our own staff about our goals that the city has towards sustainability and ways that they have opportunities to incorporate sustainability into their work. And then, of course, we're always doing lots of sustainability data tracking and reporting just to help make sure that the city's on tracking with our goals, comparing ourselves to peer cities, seeing where we're at, what areas we're doing well in, and what areas we can improve in. So here's the fun part of the presentation, which is the part you get to be involved in. A lot of the goals that we've talked about, they're large goals, right? They're not something that I can just snap my fingers and have done, however nice that would be. There's things that really require a lot of community input. So helping reduce the amount of recyclables going to our landfill and using alternative transportation, right? Those are all things that we can have a part in. So the handout that is available to you, it's also online, so if you don't want to take a physical copy, you can find all the resources on our website. We've really tried to give a whole bunch of opportunities for actions that you can take. And more importantly, the resources that are available for you to help take those actions. If you'd like to access it, you can use the QR code on your phone, or obviously there's the physical handout in the back. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to give you specific actions that you can take. It sounds like this church has already done a lot of them, which is super exciting. I do want to preference anytime we talk about actions, just being gentle to ourselves of some of these actions are going to apply to some of us and some of them are not. Right? It's really an emphasis on doing actions that make sense for you and are realistic for you. So I live 30 minutes from work, and I looked it up, how long it would take me to bike, and it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. So not really realistic for me to bike to work every day, right? I'd probably show up really grumpy. But I am obsessed with gardening, and I have 5 unruly chickens. So there's things that each of us makes sense for us to do and things that don't. So really encourage you to find ways that make sense for you to incorporate sustainability. It sounds like LES was here last time talking about their sustainable energy program. So just highlight it again really quick if you didn't hear their presentation, but they have a lot of great initiatives that you can take part of. They have a couple things to highlight is an LES energy efficient home. So it gives you tips and tricks on how to basically make your home more efficient, as the title says. But they also offer some incentives that you can take a part of. They also have the LES Peak Rewards program, which is a great way to basically help them lower some of the demand that they have on certain days that are really hot or really cold. You can take a part in that. So I'd encourage you to look at that. The next one I just wanted to chat really briefly about is alternative transportation. In 2023, we did a study to see what types of transportation people use. About 80% of people drive to work or wherever they're going in the car by themselves, right? So a lot of room for us to take advantage of the transportation options that are available like StarTran or the bike share programs that we have. And transportation can be a tricky one, right? So really encouraging you to, maybe it's a day where you carpool with someone or where you work at home, right? You don't have to do it every day, just finding options that work for you. Local food is one I love to chat your ear off about, so really encouraging you to buy local foods. Oftentimes this looks like buying directly from farmers, whether it's at farmers markets or through CSAs, which are, I have to get the acronym right, Community Shared Agriculture. I want to always say community agriculture shares, which doesn't make sense. But it's a really great way, CSAs, you can basically provide farmers money up front at the growing season, and then throughout the season they provide you with different produce. So different ways to purchase directly from them. We have both available in Lincoln. Alternatively, growing your own food or transitioning your church's area to the space that you have already is really exciting. So encouraging you to get involved there. We have a local food website. The QR code will take you up there, but it's also linked in the handout that you have. One of the things we have available on there is this GIS map. It might be a little hard to see, but it basically outlines all the resources related to food that we're aware of in Lincoln. So a lot of access to nonprofits for individuals with food insecurity. There's places that you can donate fresh produce if your garden is just overflowing with tomatoes. All these different options for you to get involved. So really encourage you to check out and see what makes sense for you. The last thing I wanted to touch on was reducing waste. So a couple of resources to be aware of. We have a What Bin Does It Go In tool. This is a really great tool that was developed by our waste management team. Basically allows you to type in any type of item that you are unsure of how to recycle or dispose of, and it'll walk you through how to dispose of it. So electronics, hazardous materials, those are all kind of trickier ones, right? It'll walk you through exactly how to dispose of it. And then speaking of hazardous materials, we do have a Has2Go program here. It's a free way to dispose of any type of hazardous materials that you have. So things like pesticides or hard chemicals that you use for cleaning, stuff like that. We also have the Hefty Renew program, which it sounds like the church has implemented, which is really exciting. This is a program that is offered through curbside recycling. It's basically an opportunity to recycle hard to recycle plastics like plastic films, plastic bags, any type of plastic items that snacks come in usually most of the time, like a cheese stick wrapper, plastic straws, styrofoam. It's a great way to dispose of all those items that can't go into the normal plastic recycling bin. And then a little bit of a brain fart, sorry. Last thing is just ending on a note of, again, some of those actions, you might be doing them already, or maybe they don't all apply to you, but I really encourage you to have conversations with people. That's what you're doing here, right? I also encourage you to do a lot of communicating with any type of organizations that you have. If you're working, or if you're going to school, or if you're part of organizations where you can give your input on some of the things you would like to say. Honestly, that's oftentimes the number one thing I hear from other organizations of why they started to participate in some of these programs, is that the people that they cared about said they wanted to see these things. I wanted to give a little example of this. This is Greenbot. He's our mascot for our Green Teams program at the city. We implemented the program just in November, but already it's been really exciting to see some of the things that have come from that. One of our members in our transportation and utilities department reached out to me the other day and said he wanted to start a Hefty bag program in the office space, because he works with signage, and the signage, they always have a lot of plastic wrap that goes around those. So now that whole division is diverting plastic just because one person was interested in diverting it. So really a lot of power in you speaking up for what you're interested in seeing. But I think I'm probably preaching to the choir, because it sounds like you guys are doing a lot already. So that's it. I'll stop talking at you. That was a lot of information, but I'd love to take any questions or any thoughts that you guys have. Contact information's up there. That's my email, and that's our website, which is also on the card.
Okay, we have the wireless mic, so who has questions for Anna tonight?
I know I can't have answered all the things you have thoughts on, so lay them on me.
I just wondered, those have the orange bags.
Yeah.
You said that's part of the curbside pickup
Yes, so
for any company?
all of the waste haulers in Lincoln, except for one hauler, Star Recycling, accepts the Hefty bags. How it works is you can get an orange bag, put all your types of plastics in there, and then you put it into your curbside recycling, and the hauling person that picks it up disposes of it, and they know how to dispose of it properly.
And where do you get those bags?
Yes. If you go to our website, it has a link to where you can find them. I think you can find them in most grocery stores. I think I think I saw them at Target the other day, but the website will walk you through specific places you can find them.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions?
One thing that I thought I might hear that I think was missing, I'm not saying that this was any criticism at all because you've got your hands full with inside Lincoln, but the flooding problem that Lincoln has originates in the whole west half of Lancaster County. The rain, if it's not kept on the land, goes down south, comes up through Salt Creek, through the Wilderness Park area, and then it hits 9 miles of levees. And those levees were built in the 50s. Their life expectancy is past. And the NRD and the city are collaborating on what can be done, because when they overtop, parts of Lincoln will be flooded. And we saw that several years ago when we had a major rain event. What can you tell me about what you're doing with that? And first of all, I would say I'm on the NRD, and the cooperative attitude we have between your political subdivision and ours is really remarkable. And we've done that with other flooding things too, Dead Man's Run and so on. But this is one that's just looming. I don't know that any of us will see it because the levees are supposed to hit a 500-year flood. That's now down to 100-year flood. But it's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about what the city of Lincoln is doing? And then I guess you did hit it a little bit with your climate resilience, know the flood risks, and creating sustainable landscapes. Have you been out here before in the daytime?
I have not, no.
Well, come on.
I need to.
It's amazing, and the work that has been done with these, what we call gardens. And I would like you to suggest to other folks to try something like this. And I don't just mean grass, but trees and other plants. So I think there's a part of your plan that should include more information and education primarily on how to keep water on the land. That means our lawns too, incidentally, and also sustainable lawns or sustainable plantings. That doesn't have to be just lawns, but there's a lot of things you can do to cut down on the water usage and runoff.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'll say a couple things. So I love that there's a lot of landscaping outside of your church. Would love to see that increased around the city. One of the things that we do have is an incentive program for installing stormwater basins. And is that what you guys used?
Yeah, we have two rain gardens.
That's wonderful.
Three, it's at least two. One stream has two of them for sure.
That's wonderful.
We were able to get into a program that you have.
Yeah. So we do have that program available. I know the funds are used up pretty much every year. So it's definitely in demand of people using that, which is really great. So it gives you some options for installing rain gardens or other infrastructure. On the floodplain question itself, a couple things. So I don't know the specific date. I think, I want to say 3 years ago. You'll have to forgive me because I was not present when this happened, but I know we put into any type of new construction that happens in Lincoln, there's a requirement for it to be built a certain amount. Yes, yeah. I think you're more of an expert on what I'm trying to say. But basically it requires a certain amount above the floodplain restrictions for any type of new construction in the floodplain zone. So a little bit of a precaution. Obviously, that's for new construction versus what's already existent. So another thing that we're working on currently is we're remapping all the floodplain areas in Lincoln. It's quite a long project, but I think I know they've started already and have been mapping quite a few of the neighborhoods, but basically those maps would help them put better protections in place and have better communication with the neighborhoods that are at risk. I'm happy to dig into more information for those, but that's about what I'm familiar with, what we're doing right now. Yeah.
Other questions for Anna? Nancy, do we have anything online? No questions online? Okay. You got the expert right here.
You like to talk about food.
I love it. Let's go.
The thing that I'm wondering, are they working with restaurants and things? You see so much waste. Like, oh, we can't take it to the homeless because somebody might be allergic to something or, you know, whatever. And it's just like, there is so much waste that even probably could go to animals, farm, you know, pigs or whatever to eat. So
Yeah, thank you. So our food pantry, one of our partners is the Lincoln Food Bank, and another partner is the Community Neighborhood, now I'm blanking, the Good Neighbor Center, sorry. So what they do is a lot of food redistribution. They partner with a lot of grocery stores, and I believe some restaurants on basically getting the food and then redistributing it. I think it could definitely be improved for restaurants, just opening up some of those access points. So certainly something we're trying to think about, yeah. But I know the food bank has diverted a lot of food waste from landfills just because of working with those folks and being able to redistribute it, yeah.
Other questions for Anna?
Do you have a line item budgetary breakdown of how things are, what this whole effort is costing, or is this, what is the resources for this, and what's the limitations on that?
Yeah. So obviously a lot of this work is happening in multiple departments. So some of the projects just depend on department budgets, and then a lot of our funding, there are federal and other grant funds that we rely on for some of these projects. Certainly a restriction is all of these efforts cost money, so we're really always looking for opportunities to partner or look for grants for moving forward with some of the projects. Yeah.
Oh, question from Doug.
I've got a little broader question. The current administration is not, the word climate change is not a word they like. And you just mentioned grants. Do you foresee losing funding? And do you also see any political pullback from, pushing climate because, of the political environment we live in today?
Definitely a topic on probably a lot of people's minds. So we have quite a few projects. We've been tracking internally just the amount of funding that we're seeing across departments that is on pause. There's quite a few projects that we're pausing right now just because we can't move forward without access to the funding. We are part of quite a few different groups that are just trying to keep an eye on what's happening. I think that's the main thing we can do right now is just continue being in the loop on what options are available. Our mayor is part of a mayor's committee for government that I know is giving a lot of input on the impact that it's going to have on our community to see some of that federal money not come because of the restrictions that are being put right now. I think we're trying to raise awareness of how we will be impacted if all that funding doesn't come down, because there is quite a bit of an impact. So I don't know if that answered your whole question. Is there anything else?
It gives me a good
Other questions for Anna tonight? Up close and personal, she's your resource. Anything online, Nancy? Okay, nothing online? Well, thank you, young lady. Please help me in thanking Anna for being with us tonight.
Thank you guys so much. It was wonderful to have a conversation with you guys and for your questions. Hey.
I just want to remind you that next month, March 25th, we will have Mark Skolnick here from LES. And in particular, your brother needs to come. So he's going to talk about the big balance. And I've heard his presentation. We've all heard him speak probably several times, but this presentation is really dynamite. He's talking about some of the things that Anna also talked about, what LES is doing. Where are we now? How can we get to where we need to go so we can be more resilient in providing consistent and cost-effective energy to homes in and around Lincoln. So it's a great presentation. He talks about everything from A to Z, can take great questions and so forth. So I just wanted to remind you that next month, March 25th, Mark Skolnick, The Big Balance, you don't want to miss it. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, thank everybody who's been online, and we wish you a wonderful evening. Thanks for coming.